Man, I'm telling you, you rewind back. You were talking about it earlier. Starting off, coming out of college, I was making $18,000 a year. 18,000. We're not talking the 1950s, by the way.
Right.
We're the 19 $18,000 a year. That's all I was making. Now, I was living with my parents at the time. I was engaged. When my wife finished school, she's 2 years younger than me. She finished school. She moved down where I was living. We got an apartment. Yes, we got an apartment. Now you think about and correlate that what you're saying in terms of today's generation, like our kids, with my son or your kids trying to go out and buy a home now, coming out of college. You know, we had to when we started renting a house, we rented an apartment. Think about what rent is today compared to trying to buy. So trying to buy, what I was saying was the house we lived in for 20 years is now selling on the market right now for 300 grand. That was a 1,700 square foot home. So now you can't buy that as someone that's 23 years old, more than likely, based on what you were saying with income.
Right.
They're not making enough. So you have to go rent. Well, what is rent? Where do you live? First of all, what city, what town do you live in? It all makes sense. You're in New York City, Chicago, Philadelphia, LA, these bigger cities. Rent is ridiculous.
Yeah. It's insane
2,000 to 3,000 bucks for nothing for a
for a
one
bad
bedroom
area.
apartment,
For a bad area.
a studio.
Yeah.
Or where we live, you get a one bedroom apartment, it's still hundreds of dollars, by the way. So but the income's not there. How are you making all of this? I just had this conversation with my daughter. She's done. She's on her own in terms of job, but she's still living at home. She's 20. We're not booting her out. She should still be in school, but she went to cosmetology school. That's what she decided to do. She can't go afford a place by herself. She can't.
Hmm.
It's impossible. So save money, learn, and this is what I'm trying to make sure they understand. You have to learn things. The world is not free.
Hmm.
You know, you have a car, insurance, gas, the maintenance on a vehicle. Then you have rent, and if you have utilities that are not included in that rent, then you have groceries. Then you want to have a personal private life, go out and do things. All that costs money. You start hitting the total button, you can't do it by yourself. You need somewhere where you don't have to pay rent right now, and you don't have to pay utilities right now. But the rest of it's on you. You got to figure it out, and you got to learn how to be able to do these kind of things. And I think this is the big missing piece, man. These younger people think they're going to come out with a college degree and they're going to be making I should be making six figures a year. I deserve it. You deserve what?
Right.
What experience do you have? Okay, excuse me, you have a piece of paper that gives you a college degree. Who cares?
That
What
usually isn't even paid for yet, but
Right. Who cares? What experience do you have? What on hands experience do you have in the profession that you're trying to get? What do you have? And you think you're going to make six figures? There's certain jobs that can do that. Maybe an engineering type role, or you become a nurse, a doctor. All that is you're going to have, to your point, you're probably going to have some bills attached to that education.
hmm.
So how do you manage all of this? And when we're talking about, you mentioned 50 being the barometer of how you start to look at things, we got to rewind, man. I said this before, earlier in life, you got to start figuring this out earlier, and you got to start having a game plan. And it's hard. I think back to the time I was that age, I wasn't thinking about any of that.
No.
My parents didn't talk about it. We need to start having these conversations with our younger people. This is every generation is different. Everybody talks about my generation was harder, this and that. What people are dealing with right now is unprecedented, man. To come out in the world with these kids, and I will absolutely say it, it's harder. It's harder. I made $18,000 a year and I was able to make it.
Yeah.
It sucked, but I was able to make it. And then I didn't stick with 18 grand a year, obviously. But who's making you can't make $18,000 a year now and come close to being able to do anything for yourself.
You can't.
You can't.